Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning in the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of a cookbook that we unboxed on Wednesday. Go back and check out that video. Unboxed a whole bunch of new books. This is called Anyone Can Bake. It's from 1928 and it's compiled by the Educational Department of the Royal Baking Powder Company. The Royal Baking Powder Company was, at that point, the largest baking powder company in the United States. They had been putting out cookbooks forever. I've got a whole bunch of their little cookbooks here. This one's from the late 1800s and 1920s, 1930s into the 1940s. They made a lot of cookbooks, and this one from 1928 is especially extravagant. The paintings inside. If I was to make a guess, I would say that these paintings inspired J. Peterman in his catalog. Anyway, we're gonna do something called the Royal Philadelphia Cinnamon Buns. I think this is a very interesting recipe because baking powder, baking soda, those were introduced in the mid 1800s as a replacement for yeast in certain applications. And certainly within cakes and quick breads, they took off. Yeast, you don't really see a lot of yeasted cakes anymore or yeasted quick breads. This cinnamon bun recipe sort of seems like one of those areas where perhaps yeast would be better, but I'm not sure. I'm not going to judge it until we get through. But I would say if you're one of those people that is afraid of making cinnamon buns because you're afraid of making a yeasted dough, don't be. Just figure it out. It's not that hard. You're going to make mistakes. It's not always going to work out, but you know what? You're going to figure it out and they're going to be great. Give it a try. Now, since I have this modern convenience of a food processor, I'm going to use it. So I've put flour in. This is sugar, salt, cinnamon, and shortening. Now, yes, I did use butter as shortening. When you see shortening in these cookbooks, when you see shortening in any cookbook, it doesn't mean vegetable shortening directly. And this book even talks about it in the front section, that when it says shortening, any fat that's solid at room temperature can be used. So that could be lard, that could be vegetable shortening, certainly butter, could be tallow. And it says that butter is the preferred shortening for all of these recipes. So I used butter because I really like butter. Now, it calls for water and an egg. So I'm going to crack the egg into the water. And we'll whisk that up. Okay, so we'll put our flour and butter mixture into a bowl. And then we add the water and egg slowly. Like so many recipes from this time period, there's not a lot of information about mixing and what this dough should look like. It's really raggedy. But it says to mix in the water and egg slowly and then roll it out 1/4 inch thick on floured bread. And I imagine what they mean by floured bread is floured breadboard or your bench. So I'm going to add a little bit of flour. Not much. I don't want to incorporate much more dough into this because it's not quite coming together yet. And we'll roll it out and see what happens. Rectangular-ish. Looks pretty good to me. I don't know that I'm going to get it much better. It's kind of a ragged dough. So I think that's good. Now we're supposed to, this is a recipe. Again, not a whole lot of instruction, which is typical for the time period. And it's also a recipe where you get a list of ingredients, and then as you read the method, they throw more ingredients at you. And it's very easy if you're used to a 2024 blog type recipe where everything is handed to you on a silver platter. It's very easy in this instance to get confused and to miss things. So the first ingredient that they don't directly call out in the ingredient list is melted butter that I'm supposed to brush over the dough. And then sprinkle with brown sugar. Now the next ingredient that you're supposed to sprinkle on top are raisins. It calls for 6 tablespoons of raisins. How do you measure raisins in a tablespoon? How do you get 6 tablespoons? Are they heaping tablespoons? When you're faced with a measurement like that, for something like raisins in a filling like this, it's really not that important. Really not that important. I just stuck my hand in a bag of raisins, pulled out a handful, put it on the bowl, brought it out here. And knowing that I would kind of look at it and say, is that enough raisins? Is it too many raisins? And then just make a decision on the fly. You don't have to be exact with that sort of thing. That's not as important as the amount of flour that went into this or the amount of butter that went into the dough. The amount of raisins could be anything. So if you like raisins, put in more. And if you don't like raisins, put in pecans or walnuts or some other nut. They would be great in this. And so now we'll just roll this up. Now the recipe tells me to put it into an iron baking pan, but if I can't get an iron baking pan, an iron skillet will do. So I've got a cast iron skillet of some size. If I can remember, I'll put the size down in the description box. I've got lots of them, and I've decided to use an enameled cast iron pan rather than a bare cast iron pan. We're supposed to make a butter and brown sugar paste to put in the bottom of the pan. So I've got some softened butter here and some brown sugar. And just kind of bring that together. Okay, the bottom and the sides of the baking pan. I almost feel like this is too big. How many of these makes 8 large buns? 2, 8. We'll see what happens. Okay, so into the pan. There's quite a bit here. Don't get flustered. Let's make it happen. It's going to be okay. Okay, so I'm going to cut this in half. And I'm just going to use a bench scraper, not a knife. I think that'll work. Okay. 1, 2. Okay, is this pan too big? Yes, this pan is too big. That, I think, is the pan. Okay. Okay, so a little sheet tray. And we'll transfer these out. Get a spatula. So, I mean, this is par for the course for a recipe like this without a whole lot of information. This is also what happens on a daily basis in a test kitchen where someone is coming up with new recipes or a new way to do something. or a new idea around a recipe. Because there really aren't any new recipes anymore. A lot of it's just a feeling that you're going to change something and you're going to add or come up with a new technique or something like that. This is what happens. You get, 2/3 into a recipe and you think, I did that wrong. Just pivot. It's not that big of a deal. Don't get flustered. So I've got the pan. I've got the butter brown sugar mixture in the bottom of this pan. This is no clue what size this is. I don't know. I'll measure it later. We'll get it in the oven. Now I'm supposed to let this stand on the countertop for 15 to 20 minutes before I put it in the oven. I think by the time I get these in here, I'll have been playing around for that much time. And I can just stick it in the oven. The oven is preheated to 425. Even this pan is maybe just on the large side. And these are going to be swimming in butter and sugar. Okay. Into the oven. 25 minutes. Okay, apparently they're ready. So, of glove, because this is going to get messy. There's going to be hot, sticky, sugary butter everywhere. And obviously I need to take them out immediately. Otherwise the sugar will harden and you'll never get it out. Okay, let's see. What do we got? Ooh, and the pan's not even that bad.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Jules.
Glenn's brandishing a knife.
Okay.
Hey, friends.
They
They look like cinnamon buns.
do look like cinnamon
Kind of a
buns.
strange texture look.
They are going to have a strange texture. They're not yeasted.
And there's like two, like is this a butter and sugar layer?
Well, the butter, the proportion of butter to sugar is out of whack, so there is a little bit of butter left over.
That needs a spoon. Because, nothing's better than butter and sugar.
So I'm going to cut one in half.
Is it crunchy?
It's not yeasted.
Oh.
It's not yeasted.
Okay, so that would explain why the texture's different.
So the
'cause I'm used to a
texture's going to
buttery
be
version.
off.
Okay, so know that. Well, I'm just going to.
Okay, so if you're expecting pillowy, soft Cinnabon type cinnamon roll or cinnamon bun or a yeasted bun, that's not this.
No.
But it doesn't matter because the flavor is exactly what it's supposed to be.
It delivers on the sugar, the sugar butter raisins. I see you went with the raisins.
So much brown sugar, so much butter, but it brings all the flavor.
It's one of those things, as long as you know, it's good. I like
Yeah.
it. I have
Yeah.
no problem toasting one of those up and having it for breakfast. It's so not good for me.
No. So I would encourage you, if you're afraid of yeasted buns, to still do the yeasted kind. But if you wanted something that came together really quickly, this did not take long to make, and you're not waiting for anything to rise. This came together really quickly, and is pretty tasty, even if the texture isn't exactly what you would expect from a cinnamon bun.
It's probably something you can make camping really easily.
Yes, definitely,
Right? Yeah.
definitely could do this camping. Okay,
I'm really enjoying this as I scoop up the raisins off the.
this is pretty
Plate.
good. I'd give it a shot. Thanks so much for stopping by. See you again soon.
No, it's like a chewy version.
It's basically a pie dough. Really what it comes down to is when I made it, it's essentially a pie dough.
And that's really all I need to eat.
Yeah.
Would have been better to roll it super thin. Like a roly-poly.